This is ESPN Esports. I'm Arda Ocal. Let's talk about the big patch that just dropped for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It affected multiplayer, it affected Warzone, and also affecting Call of Duty League, potentially, definitely changing the entire meta as we go into the latter half of the season. So what exactly happened? Well, we got changes to Warzone. It's now a 200-player lobby, can support up to 200 players. We got some new weapons, we got some nerfs, we got some buffs. The most interesting one as it pertains to Call of Duty League, however, is dramatic nerfs to the MP5. We got decreased damage range, decreased 10mm damage range, reduced long-range damage to 10mm ammo, so huge for those entry fraggers. That's going to significantly decrease their presence and also the damage they're able to deal upon entry, and slight recoil increase to 10mm ammo. So how is this going to change the meta? Well, definitely a lot of pros are reacting online saying the MP5 is dead. Rip the MP5. Attach said that. I would say I'm surprised, but nah, grind time for champs, said Dylan of the London Royal Ravens. And Easy Mac put together a bunch of notes on Twitter as well, saying the no stock nerf is bigger than the MP5 nerf, honestly. Slows the game down a lot and makes ARs less aggro. Going to be interesting seeing the pace so slow and Uzis everywhere. So here are my three big takeaways of this patch, especially now, and the changes that were made. Number one, what you can see from the reaction from pros online, you'd say we would be surprised, but we're not surprised. Especially all we know about Infinity Ward and how they treat this game and how the casual fan base is much more important than the competitive scene. And we've heard comments from pro players like Scump in the past in how the communication is between the developer and the pro community, and how little, or at least the communication seems to be a one-way street, and there isn't much being taken from the pros as it pertains to changes to the game or updates to the game. And this is a perfect example of that. The MP5 was really the big staple this year in Call of Duty League, and now we're going to see fundamental changes with really only 3 tournaments left. We are in the latter half of the season. We're about to get to the playoffs, and now we're going to see a complete meta shift in the game. We're going to see more Uzis. We're going to see possibly 2 or 3 ARs per composition, a lot less MP5s. I don't think the MP5 is going to be gone completely from the game. It's still going to be the most powerful weapon from close range, but definitely for flex players especially, you might see some different weapons being picked here. And the timing stinks. I would definitely for a lot of, especially for Call of Duty League pros, having to deal with this already with established metas and all the time that they've put in. This is certainly not the first time something like this has happened, and I'm sure it won't be the last time. But every time it does happen, you always think in the back of your mind, this is really unfortunate, especially for these players. With that said, I will say that my second point is that COD players, though they might complain online, though they might give their thoughts and they might not always be pleasant on what is happening, at the end of the day, they are professionals. And one thing I have found about Call of Duty League pros or COD pros in general is that they will put in the work. They are very willing, as reluctant as they might be, to put in the work to find the next meta, to master it, and to be best suited and placed to be able to succeed. So as much as we'll see comments online, and listen, it's the COD community, so you can certainly expect a lot of comments online, at the end of the day, when all of that is out there, when it's all said and done, they will have put the work in because they, at the end of the day, love the game, they are professionals, and they're going to grind it no matter what the meta is to put themselves in the best position to succeed, especially as we go into the playoffs, because we only have 3 tournaments left here. So I do feel like even though the meta is going to change fundamentally here, I think the Call of Duty League and its pros will be ready for it. As much of a pain as this is, many of them will see this as part of the job. Many of them will even have expected something like this. It won't come as a surprise based on history or even just changes to the game in the past and cycles and patterns. So I think they're going to be ready. The third thing to hammer down here is something that Scump said in a previous video for the Huntsman and Hex. He mentioned it in an interview with Hex on the Eavesdrop podcast, is that Warzone really saved this title. That was my big takeaway from the patch notes. It seemed like every update that it was Warzone related, whether it's the lobby size or the buffs and nerfs to guns or the different skins that were available, etc. It just seemed like every update that was Warzone related was positive, whereas many of the updates that were in-game weren't received so well. So if you look at this title, and when we look at this title several years from now, when we reminisce about it, when we look at it, and especially when we place it in rankings beside other Call of Duty titles, I don't think Modern Warfare will be high on anyone's list for decades to come. But Warzone will be. So if you include Warzone in that, it might get a much higher placement simply because Warzone is such a revered game mode and it was so well executed and it's so much fun to play. So I agree with Scump here in that Warzone really did save Modern Warfare, in that Warzone is really the title that is the heralded one, and hopefully that mode continues on with the next release, and it's not a completely new Battle Royale game when Treyarch takes over next release. That remains to be seen. There's been some rumors out there, but for these patch notes, once again, the MP5 severely nerfed. My 3 takeaways are: we should be surprised, but we're definitely not surprised. With that said, I do believe that Call of Duty League pros are among the best professionals in all of esports as it pertains to grinding their game and learning their game, and even though they might complain online, being ready for meta changes like this, they will put in the work, they will put their heads down, and they will put themselves in the best positions to succeed. That's the kind of work ethic that I have noticed from Call of Duty League players. But also, this really cements the point that Warzone greater than sign Modern Warfare in general, or every other mode. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of the patch notes. What was your favorite part? What was your least favorite part? What kind of meta you think we will see now in the Call of Duty League? What kind of positional changes we will see? And whether or not this spells the end of the MP5. Spoiler alert, the answer is yes, except in certain situations.